I hold up the Glock 19 to the man and say, "Dude, do you know what this is?" "This is a Glock 19. You literally have a sword." I fire a shot into the ceiling to show my power. Bro, I would seriously just lay down the weapon. Hey there, welcome to another video where I have ChatGPT run me a game of Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition D&D. Well, kind of in this one. I guess we'll see. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, if you don't know, ChatGPT, just artificial intelligence. I've been trying to work with it, trying to get it to run me an actual game. I wanted to see what would happen if you brought a gun in a Dungeons & Dragons game. I mean, technically the way I'm playing, it's only me. I don't have a party of characters I'm controlling. It's just one guy, so I see it's kind of fair that I get a gun. Let's see how it turned out. I did this last night, but I just thought it was pretty funny, so it's pretty interesting. So I started out, by giving it the rules. I want to play a, D&D adventure, blah, 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 start, stop. I gave it some rules, some commands I made up, a format for it, and then I asked it to give me an outline of the adventure. But I'm going to scroll past it, because I usually do whenever I generate it, so I don't get any spoilers. But I still want ChatGPT to, state what its plans are going to be, so I can, A, go back and see how well it stuck to the script. And B, I feel like when things are stated in the chat in text, it sticks to it better, instead of you just hoping that it secretly wrote a campaign behind, the screen. You find yourself standing in the middle of a lush jungle, the sun beating down on your skin. As you take in your surroundings, you see tall trees towering over you, thick foliage and vines hanging down from the branches above. You also notice a faint path leading deeper into the jungle. What do? I said, I pull out my Glock 19 and begin to follow the faint path leading deeper into the jungle. So I'm already stating, because I wanted to see if it would let me do a Glock 19. I didn't know if it would allow that in a D&D game. But it totally did. As you pull out your Glock 19, you start to walk down the path. You hear the sounds of leaves rustling and twigs snapping in the distance. Suddenly, a group of 5 tribal warriors jump out from the trees ahead, their faces painted with fierce-looking designs, and they brandish spears and shields. The tribal warriors begin to shout and charge you. What do you want to do? I was like, dang dude, it just threw me right into it. No choice, here's the combat. So here's a level 3 fighter I'm working with. Dex is not good, so my initiative definitely was not great. In fact, I had to take a L on that. You roll a 12 for initiative. The tribal warriors got a 15. The tribal warriors quickly close the gap between you and them, the closest warrior swinging a spear at you, but you manage to dodge it just in time. The others continue to close in, their weapons at the ready. It's your turn now. There are 5 tribal warriors in front of you, all within melee range. What would you like to do? It's pretty generous not letting them all at 5 attack me at once. Maybe it's because there's one player, but I think I have the upper hand. I raise my Glock 19 and try to blast one of them. As you raise your Glock 19 and take aim at one of the tribal warriors, you notice that the sound of gunfire echoes loudly through the jungle, drawing attention of nearby creatures. Not good. You take your shot, but unfortunately, you miss your target. The bullet whizzes past the warrior's head and hits a tree behind them. The tribal warriors continue to charge towards you, getting closer and closer. What would you like to do next? I steady my aim and focus. I then hold my breath and fire another shot at the tribal warrior. You steady your aim and take a deep breath and fire another shot at one of the tribal warriors charging towards you. This time you manage to hit the target, the bullet piercing through the warrior's chest, causing them to stumble and fall to the ground. The remaining 4 warriors continue their charge towards you, undeterred by the loss of their comrade. It's the tribal warriors' turn now, 2 of them swinging their spears at you, while the 2 others close in for melee attack. Please make a dexterity saving throw to see if you can dodge their attacks. See, it definitely doesn't know how to play D&D. It's already making me 1 dex save to see if I get attacked by all these warriors. It's very odd. But I follow its command to see where it goes. I got a 19 total. With a dexterity saving throw of 19, you expertly dodge the attacks of the tribal warriors. You manage to sidestep their spears and avoid their melee strikes. It's your turn now. You have 4 tribal warriors in front of you, 2 of them within melee range, and 2 of them at a distance. What would you like to do? I raise my Glock 19 towards the nearest warrior and send 3 rounds into his chest. You raise your Glock 19 towards the nearest tribal warrior and fire 3 rounds at him. 2 of the shots hit the warrior's chest, causing him to stumble back and fall to the ground lifeless. The remaining 3 warriors continue their assault, closing in on you. They are now within melee range. It's their turn now, 2 of them swinging their spears at you, while the 3rd goes for a melee attack. Please make a dexterity saving throw to see if you can dodge their attacks. I rolled a 6 and got a 5, after applying my dexterity. With a dexterity saving throw of 5, you fail to dodge the attacks of the tribal warriors. One of the spears hits you in the shoulder, causing you to take 5 points of piercing damage. The melee attack also lands, dealing an additional 3 points of bludgeoning damage. It's now your turn, but keep in mind that you are currently engaged in melee combat with 3 tribal warriors. What would you like to do? And I assume these are like 5e stats, so they're probably not crazy strong. I fire 3 more controlled shots, 1 bullet for each of the attacking warrior's chests. You take a deep breath and fire 3 controlled shots, aiming for each of the attacking warrior's chests. The first shot misses the mark, hitting the ground at the warrior's feet. However, the second shot hits their intending targets, taking down 2 of the warriors. The last remaining warrior lets out a furious cry, charging towards you with his spear held high. That rhymed. It's his turn now. The warrior goes for a melee attack. Please make a dexterity saving throw to see if you can dodge the attack. I got a 5. Oh yeah, exactly what I got before. With a dexterity saving throw of 5, you fail to dodge the attack. The warrior's spear lands a heavy blow, dealing 7 points of piercing damage. You are now severely injured, with only 8 points left. It's now your turn. The last remaining tribal warrior is standing in front of you, looking determined to take you down. What would you like to do? It doesn't know about my character sheet, so I was at like 13 health, but it must have calculated some kind of character sheet. It randomly tells me I have 8 health points, so I just went with what it said. I was like, well, I'm in a little bit more of a dire situation. Another hit like that would be extremely dangerous now that I only have 8 health points, I will say that, so let's see. I take steady aim with my Glock 19 and empty the rest of my clip into the chest of the lone warrior. I was like, oh, let's see how this goes. You take steady aim with your Glock 19 and empty the rest of the clip into the chest of the lone warrior. Your shots find their mark and the warrior falls to the ground dead. With the last of the attackers defeated, you take a moment to catch your breath and survey the area. You see the path leading deeper into the jungle continues ahead of you, and you also spot a small makeshift shelter nearby. What would you like to do? I reload my Glock, then I move over to the small makeshift shelter and search it for anything valuable. I rolled a 16 on my perception check. I was just kind of like, trying to keep it in the D&D mindset and just giving it my roll, assuming it's going to ask for that. I feel like it really helps. You reload a Glock 19 and cautiously make your way towards the small makeshift shelter. You take a look around the area and spot a few useful items scattered nearby, including a water skin and a few pieces of fruit that you recognize to be safe to eat. You approach the shelter and examine it carefully. Inside you find a few basic supplies including a wooden spear, a small amount of dried meat, and a tattered leather-bound journal. You take a closer look at the journal and see that it is filled with notes and sketches of various creatures and plants found in the surrounding jungle. As you search the shelter, you notice a faint rustling sound coming from the nearby bushes. What would you like to do? I throw the water skin, dried meat, and journal in my backpack. I then crouch down near the shelter and aim my Glock 19 at the entrance. You quickly gather the water skin, dried meat, and the journal and stow them away in your backpack. You then crouch down in the shelter, readying your Glock 19 and aiming it towards the entrance. After a few tense moments, a small group of monkeys emerges from the bushes. They seem to be foraging for food and pay little attention to you. As they scatter and disappear back to the jungle, you let out a sigh of relief and relax your grip on your weapon. Now that you have a few supplies and some information from the journal, what would you like to do next? Oh, I like how it just gave me this random, flavor moment. Using the journal, I memorized some plants that are poisonous, committing them to memory. I then tuck the journal in my backpack and step out into the jungle. I then take the path I saw earlier deeper into the jungle. As you walk down the path, the sound of the river gradually becomes louder. Eventually, the path opens to a clearing. You see a large river with rope bridge crossing it. You also notice 2 wooden boats on the shore of the river. To the left, you see a small hut made of bamboo straw. The door to the hut is closed. To the right of the river, you see a dense forest with a faint path leading into it. What would you like to do? I walk up to the bamboo hut to my left and try to open the door. As you approach the bamboo hut, you notice that the door is slightly ajar. You push it open and peek inside. You see a small room with a low ceiling. There is a wooden table in the center of the room with a map of the surrounding area spread out on it. You also see a bedroll in one corner and a small chest in the other. What would you like to do? I look at the map of the surrounding area for any nearby points of interest. You take a closer look at the map on the table. You see that there is a small village marked on the map about a half-day's journey to the north. There is also a river that runs through the jungle and appears to lead to a larger settlement further to the east. There are several other markings on the map that you can't quite make out. What would you like to do? And at this point, I don't even know what my goal is. I love it. It just dropped me in the jungle and said, go, here are warriors attacking you. So I really don't know what it is, so I would assume it's to get back to civilization at this point. I then go over to the small chest and open it to see if there's anything valuable. You approach the small chest and find it locked. You can try to pick the lock with a dexterity check or force it open with a strength check. Which approach would you like to take? Looking at this, plus I got an athletics proficiency. So you know what your boy's doing. I would like to try and force it open with a strength check. You step back from the chest and take a deep breath. You then run at the chest, ready to smash it open. Roll a strength check to see if you are able to break open the chest. I love how it's dramatic, like I run at the chest. I did roll pretty good, plus my good bonus. You take a deep breath and run at the chest with all your might. With a loud cracking, the chest opens up and you see inside is a small leather pouch. You pick up the pouch and open it up to find a collection of gold and silver coins. You count out 60 gold coins and 120 silver coins. As you finish counting the coins, you hear a rustling in the bushes nearby. It sounds like someone or something is approaching. What do you do? This again. I bet it's monkeys. I would like to try and hide under the table. I will also raise my Glock 19 and aim it at the entrance. Classic. As you hide under the table and aim your Glock 19 at the entrance, you hear footsteps getting closer. The footsteps stop right outside the door, and you can hear someone fumbling with the doorknob. Suddenly, the door bursts open and 2 tribal warriors rush into the hut. They immediately spot you under the table and raise their spears, ready to attack. What do you do? At least it kept it consistent with the monsters. Got consistent foes. I hold my breath and focus. I then release a shot at the chest of each of the 2 warriors. I'm using just the stats of the character sheet, but I also have a gun, so I feel like at 6 seconds of combat, I can shoot at least twice. As you take your shots, the 2 warriors charge towards you, their spears raised. The first shot misses, hitting a nearby wall and creating a loud noise that startles the attackers. The second shot hits the first warrior in the chest, causing him to stumble and fall to the ground. The third shot, and you get one for free, hit the second warrior in the arm, causing him to drop his spear and grab his wounded limb. The warriors pause for a moment, reassessing the situation. You take this opportunity to crawl out from the table and make a run for the entrance. One of the warriors tries to grab you, but you manage to dodge him and run out of the hut. It just randomly railroads me to get out of the hut. Interesting. Earlier, you mentioned 2 wooden boats at the shore of the river outside the bamboo hut. I would like to run down to the wooden boats and see if they seem seaworthy. As you rush down to the shore of the river, you see 2 wooden boats, each with a small paddle. Upon closer inspection, you notice that the boats are in good condition and appear seaworthy. The boats look sturdy and well constructed, and the paddles seem to be in good shape. I grab both of the paddles from each boat. I then hop into one of the boats and use the paddles to push it off into the current of the jungle's river. I thought, hey, maybe, grabbing both paddles would make sure they can't pursue me. As you push the boat off the shore and into the current, you can feel the strength of the river's flow. The boat seems to be sturdy enough to hold up well against the force of the river. You start paddling downstream, letting the current guide you deeper into the jungle. The dense trees on either side of the river create a cool and dark atmosphere, but the sound of the river rushing against the boat and the occasional bird chirps keeps you alert. As you continue down the river, you notice that the terrain around you begins to change. The trees become less dense and the river becomes wider, with some small sandbars and islands appearing in the middle of the water. You can also see that the river starts to flow faster, and there are signs of rapids ahead. You paddle harder, trying to stay in control of the boat as it moves through the rough waters. You can see the rocks and rapids coming up quickly, but you stay focused and navigate the boat through the dangerous terrain. Didn't even have to make a check. Eventually, you emerge on the other side of the rapids, the water smoothing out and the trees growing taller and more dense once again. As you continue down the river, you begin to feel a sense of unease. The jungle seems darker and more foreboding, and the sound of the creatures around you seems to have grown quieter. Suddenly, you hear a roar, and you see a massive shape moving towards you from the trees on the left side of the river. What do you do? I steady myself in the small boat. I then pull out my Glock 19 Classic and point it in the direction of the massive shape. If it comes within 10 feet of me, I will fire 3 controlled shots into the target. As you move further down the river, the massive shape you saw earlier becomes visible. It's a giant crocodile and appears to be swimming directly towards you. As it gets closer, you notice that it's easily over 20 feet long. The crocodile gets within 10 feet of your boat and begins to open its massive jaws. You take aim with your Glock 19 and fire 3 controlled shots at the creature's head. Your shots seem to have hit their mark, as the crocodile suddenly stops moving and starts to sink below the water surface. Dang, dude, I don't even know how much damage I'm rolling or whatever, but I guess it can't take 3 controlled shots from my Glock. Man, people need to use these more. You continue paddling down the river, keeping a close eye out for any other dangers that may lie ahead. After several hours of paddling, you eventually come across a small village on the river's edge. The villagers welcome you warmly and offer you food and shelter for the night. As you rest and recover, you can't help but think about the adventure you just had in the jungle. Despite the danger and uncertainty, you feel a sense of excitement and fulfillment that you have never experienced before. You realize that there's still so much more to explore and discover in the world, and you can't wait to see what's waiting for you out there. At this point, I was like, dude, I still don't know what my quest is. It's kind of rambling on now. Like, hinting that there's, like, I'm on a quest for something. I don't even know. I don't know what I'm doing. So I decided I'd go back and look at the outline at the very beginning. Title, The Lost Artifact. Introduction. The player will be hired by a wealthy collector to retrieve a lost artifact from an ancient temple deep in the jungle. Well, there's the missing part. I just spawned in the jungle and went with it. And, interesting. Well, now I know what my goal is. I feel like that was missed. Act 1, the players will journey through the dense jungle. The players will journey through the dense jungle, encountering dangerous creatures and obstacles along the way. Act 2, the players will navigate through the traps and puzzles of the temple to retrieve the artifact. However, they will soon discover that they are not the only one searching for it as... And it just, for some reason, I don't know why, it didn't complete it. But let's continue. So now at this point I'm just like, well, let's try to get this mission on track. I tell the villagers that I'm looking for a lost artifact from an ancient temple deep in this jungle. Do they know anything about it? The villagers look at you with suspicion, but one of them steps forward and says, there is an old temple deep in the jungle. We do not go there, as it is cursed, but we have heard stories of a powerful artifact hidden within its walls. It is said to have the power to control the forces of nature. But be warned, many have gone in search of it and have never returned. I stand before the village and ask, is there anyone here who would like to join me on my quest for the powerful artifact? I would appreciate any help and will split any loot we find. I love how, I don't even know what the artifact's called, it's just the artifact. One of the villagers steps forward and says, I would be honored to join you on your quest. My name is Kira, and I know these jungles like the back of my hand. Together we can find this artifact and bring glory to our village. A few more villagers step forward, nodding their heads in agreement. We are willing to help as well, one of them says. Our skills may not be as great as Kira's, but we are willing to do whatever it takes to help our village prosper. You now have a small group of villagers willing to join you on your quest for the artifact. Yeah, so we got some helpers now, which is very helpful. Doesn't really tell me how many villagers or what anything about them or stats or anything, but hey. I turn to the small group of villagers and Kira and say, our expedition is now called the Jungle Bunch. I feel like naming the group makes it easier to where, if ChatGPT starts to forget about the group, I can reference back to the Jungle Bunch and know what I'm talking about. The villagers and Kira look at you with a mix of confusion and amusement. One of the villagers speaks up and says, the Jungle Bunch? That's a strange name, but if it means we'll be working together to find this artifact, I'm in. Kira nods in agreement and adds, I'm in too, let's get started. With your newly formed expedition, you set off deeper into the jungle in search of the ancient temple and its powerful artifact. As you travel, you encounter various challenges and obstacles, but with the help of your team, you are able to overcome them and make progress towards your goal. I like how it just brushes past all that. Like we have adventures. And I don't even know their names. I would like to know the names of the 3 other villagers that are with Kira and I. And at this point it said a few, so I just assumed 3. Kira introduces you to the 3 other villagers, who I've already encountered various challenges and obstacles with, keep in mind. Just learned their names. It's Tala, Jaro, Maro. That rhymes. I then ask our guide Kira to lead us to the temple. Kira nods and begins to lead the group through the dense jungle. The journey is long and arduous, with the group facing many obstacles such as steep hills and treacherous streams and dense foliage. However, Kira proves to be an excellent guide and leads the group through these obstacles with ease. I'm really glad I asked for a guide. After several days of travel, the group finally arrives at the entrance of the temple. It is an imposing structure made of dark stone and covered in vines and moss. The entrance is guarded by 2 large stone statues of fierce-looking beasts. Kira turns to the group and says, this is it, the entrance to the temple. Be on your guard, we don't know what kind of dangers lie within. I nod my head and take out my Glock 19. I then lead the group up the entrance to the temple, looking for any traps. I roll a 22 on my perception check. I gotta say, I feel confident leading the party when I have a Glock 19, as one does. As you approach the entrance of the temple, you notice that the path leading up to it is littered with debris and rubble. However, your keen eye is able to detect a few traps set along the way. There are pressure plates on the ground and are likely to trigger some kind of mechanism, as well as tripwires that could activate traps. You also notice that some of the stones in the wall look like they may be loose or movable. I point out all the trap mechanisms and trap wires. I then move over to the stones that appear to be movable and try to push them. As you push on the stones, you hear a grinding noise coming from behind the wall. Slowly, a secret door is revealed, leading deeper into the temple. Kira turns to you and nods. Impressive. You seem to have a talent for uncovering hidden passages. Shall we proceed? The rest of the group looks at you expectantly, awaiting your decision. I turn to Kira and say, your mom has a talent for uncovering hidden passages. I then proceed through the secret door into the temple. As you make your way through the secret door, you find yourself in I love how it just skips past it. It's just, Kira's like, okay. It doesn't even know what to say about that. As you make your way through the secret door, you find yourself in a dimly lit hallway. The halls are lined with ancient hieroglyphs, and the air is thick with the musty smell of age. Kira leads the way, her torch casting eerie shadows on the walls. After a few minutes of walking, you come to a large chamber. In the center of the room, there is a pedestal with a small golden statue on top. The statue appears to be a monkey holding a small gemstone in his hand. As you approach the statue, see, it railroads me, it just makes me approach it. You hear a low rumbling sound. Suddenly, the floor begins to shake, and chunks of rock fall from the ceiling. You realize too late that the statue was a trap, and you and your group are now trapped in the collapsing chamber. Oh no. Kind of railroading. You have to think quickly to get out of this situation. What do you do? I try to back up a few steps and make a perception check, looking for traps. I rolled an 8. Not very good, though. I was not happy about that roll. As you take a step back, you don't notice anything particularly suspicious in your immediate area. However, you do see that the hallways ahead of you seem to be getting darker and more ominous, with large spiderwebs and a few scattered bones visible in dim light. You also hear a faint sound of something skittering across the floor, like many feet moving at once. We know what that means. Is there an exit from this room? You scan the room and see a large door stoneway on the opposite side of the room, which appears to be only visible exit. However, it seems to be blocked by a large stone slab that has fallen from the ceiling, particularly blocking the entrance. Dungeon diving is much harder with ChatGPT. RP is good. Very good, actually. Scary good. Dungeon diving is okay. It kind of can't keep a consistent visualization of the rooms and such. And then definitely combat is the worst. It's very bad at remembering and tracking and not doing your turn. I instruct Kira to grab the small golden monkey statue. I then tell Tala, Jaro, and Maro to help me push the stone slab out of the way so we can exit the room. As you all push the stone slab out of the way, you hear a loud rumbling noise coming from the room behind you. Turning around, you see that the walls of the room have started to close in. Slowly but surely, it appears that the room was rigged with a trap, triggered by taking the monkey statue. Thinking quickly, you instruct your team to push the stone slab back into place to keep the trap from closing in on you. You then search the room for another way out, making a perception check. You roll a 16 and notice a small hole in the ceiling that looks like it may lead to another room. It just rolls a perception for me, finds it for me, and then you direct your team to help you climb up and investigate the hole. Using some nearby stones to make a makeshift ladder, you all climb up and find yourself in a small room with the ladder leading up to another opening in the ceiling. You climb up the ladder and emerge outside, grateful to have escaped the trap. I'm so confused at what has happened. Because at first it was, there's a room with a monkey statue. We enter it forces us to enter, starting rumbling and falling debris. I look around the room, there's no exit, even though we had to have come in. And then I look around the room again, and there is a doorway, blocked by stone, so I have my allies and I start moving it. So Kira runs over, grabs the monkey as I instructed her, which makes it worse as the walls start closing in. And then we push the rock back into place to keep the trap from closing on you. So it's like the rock blocking the door was what was making the walls close. Very confusing, but that would mean that the walls are still rumbling, the ceiling's still collapsing from the first thing of entering the room. And then it just randomly has me find the hole in the ceiling, climbs us up, it keeps climbing up the ladder to another opening in the ceiling, and then emerge outside, yeah. I turn to Kira and say, "Did you still have the monkey statue?" Kira nods and shows you the small golden monkey statue. I give her a pat on the back and say, "You're not so bad, kid." I then turn around and look at our current surroundings. You are standing in a large room with various stone pillars, carvings, and torches. The room is dimly lit, and there are no obvious exits, except for the entrance that you came in through. The walls are covered in strange symbols and pictographs that you can't decipher. There are also a few small objects scattered around the room, but nothing that catches your immediate attention. I would like to make a perception check. I got a 13. You look around the room and notice that it appears to be some sort of ancient library or archive. The shelves are filled with books and scrolls, some of which look quite old and worn. You can see a number of tables with quills and ink pots on them, as well as a few chairs scattered throughout the room. There are no obvious exits from the room, aside from the way you came in, which is the hole in the ground. I ask Kira, Tala, Jaro, and Maro if any of them know what the symbols and the pictographs on the walls mean. Kira steps forward and examines the symbols and pictographs on the walls, taking a moment to study them. She then turns to you and says, "These are ancient hieroglyphs that describe the history of this temple and the people who built it. It also mentions a powerful artifact that was kept here for generations, but was eventually lost or stolen." So the artifact we came all this way for has been stolen? Kira nods solemnly. It appears so. The symbol on the altar indicates that it was dedicated to the god of thieves, so it's not surprising that someone would try to steal it. I let out a sigh, which it controls. Well, we can't just give up now. We've come too far. Let's see if we can find any clues about who might have taken it and where they might have gone. I love how it's like the game's like panicking, like, it's okay. We just look for clues. I look around for any clues on who might have taken the artifact we came here looking for. As you look around, you notice that some of the debris on the ground seems to have been disturbed recently, as if someone has moved it around. You also see some footprints that lead out of the room and down a corridor to the left. The footprints appear to be fresh, and you can see that they were made by at least 2 people. I say, is anyone going to question the fact that there are ancient carved symbols on the walls saying that the artifact has been stolen, yet we somehow are seeing fresh tracks here? I would say, if I were to shoehorn into a reasonable story, it's the Temple of Thieves, and that the artifacts are depicting a prophecy that it's going to be stolen. And that it just so happens to have just been stolen for the first time in all these Decades? I don't know. Kira speaks up and says, "You're right, it doesn't make sense. Perhaps the thieves returned and left these tracks behind." Tala adds, "Or maybe there is more to this temple than we know. Maybe there's another way to access the artifact." Very cryptic, but sounds kind of cool. I give a shrug and start to follow the fresh footprints of the two people. As you follow the footprints, you start to notice that they lead deeper into the temple. You eventually come across a set of stairs leading down into what appears to be a large chamber. The footprints seem to be heading in that direction. As you descend the stairs, you hear the faint sounds of voices echoing through the chamber. As you approach the bottom of the stairs, you see two figures standing in front of a large altar, which appears to be covered in various jewels and precious stones. One of the figures appears to be a tall, muscular man with a bald head and a thick beard. He is dressed in dark leather armor and carries a large, jagged-edged sword at his side. The other figure appears to be a slender woman, dressed in black clothing and carrying a longbow at her side. We got a ranger. As you step closer, the woman notices your presence and draws her bow, pointing it in your direction. The man turns to face you, his sword at the ready. "What do you want?" he growls. So it just gave me no... Like I just said, I want to follow the footprints, and all of a sudden now, I'm in a confrontation with the two people. No stealth check, no nothing. Annoying. I flick the safety off my Glock 19 and prepare to raise it at a moment's notice. I then step forward and say, "We came here for the artifact." The two individuals turn around to face you, and you see that they are armed with machetes. One of them, the tall, muscular man with a scruffy beard, steps forward and says, "The artifact is ours. We found it fair and square." You notice that the other person is a smaller, wiry man with a scar across his cheek. He doesn't say anything, but he keeps his machete at the ready. The tall man continues, "You can either leave now and forget about the artifact, or you can try to take it from us. But be warned, we won't give it up without a fight." I love how it is morphed. So it was first a tall, muscular man with a bald head and a thick beard. The other one's a slender woman dressed in black clothing. Then later, next sentence, one of them is tall, muscular man with a scruffy beard. Okay, he's the one from earlier. I'll totally give it that. The other person suddenly morphed from a woman with a bow to a smaller, wiry man with a scar across his face. Maybe it's magic. It was actually a polymorph, or some kind of disguise magic. Who am I to say? I'm not the DM. I hold up the Glock 19 to the man and say, "Dude, do you know what this is?" "This is a Glock 19. You literally have a sword." I fire a shot into the ceiling to show my power. "Bro, I would seriously just lay down the weapon before I have to bust a cap and a mother father." The man looks intimidated by your weapon and quickly drops the sword. He raises his hand and surrenders and says, Okay, you win. Just don't shoot me, please." I love how this is so quick, like he understands what this is. You lower your weapon and ask, "Who are you, and why did you steal the artifact?" The man hesitates for a moment before answering, "My name is Sato. I was hired by a wealthy collector to steal the artifact. He promised me a large sum of money if I retrieved it for him." Curious, I was also hired by, even though I wasn't told that directly. You ask, "Who is the collector, and where is he now?" Sato shakes his head and says, "I don't know his name. He hired me through an intermediary. As for his location, he's probably long gone by now." You take a moment to consider your options. You could turn Sato over to the authorities, or you could try to get information out of him about the collector. What a random thing. I hold out my free hand to Sato and say, "Can I please have the artifact?" Let's just try saying please. Sato looks at you and then the rest of his group, the shape-shifting person. His eyes fill with uncertainty. He finally nods and hands you the artifact, saying, "Here, take it. I don't want any trouble." You take the artifact from Sato and examine it closely. It is a small, intricately carved statue made of gold, with a sparkling emerald set in the center. You can feel its power emanating from it. You know that you have found what you were looking for. As you turn to leave the room, you hear Sato call out, "Wait," he says. "I can't let you leave just yet. I need to know that you won't go to the authorities and tell them what you found here." "What do you want us to do?" you ask. First, I'm so confused. Like, we're in the middle of a jungle and he's talking about the authorities, and I guess the authorities of the land, I don't know. Sato thinks for a moment before responding, "I want you to promise me that you won't tell anyone about what happened here today, and in return, I will let you leave in peace." You look at your companions, who nod in agreement, and then turn back to Sato. "We promise," you say. "We won't tell anyone about what happened here today." Sato nods, satisfied, and then steps aside to let you pass. You and your group leave the temple, clutching the powerful artifact in your hands, and head back towards the village. A lot of railroading, and of course he's gonna let me pass. I have a Glock 19. So he's acting like, what are you gonna do if I want to tell the authorities, bro? What if I want to? Are you gonna do something right now about it? Once Kira, Talo, Jaro, and Maro and I are traveling back towards the village, I would like to turn to Kira and say, "So, how would you guys like to split this? I really want the artifact." I take out all the gold and silver I found earlier and say, "How about you keep all this money, as well as the golden monkey statue with the jewel, and I keep the artifact?" Kira looks at the gold and silver and nods. I think this is fair. I am not too interested in the artifact anyway, but the money will be helpful for my family in the village. Talo, Jaro, and Maro nod in agreement. But, Kira adds, we should also bring some of the gold and silver back to the village to help with their needs. It's only fair that we share treasure with the community that supported us. Yeah, it's the hero's journey. We gotta bring it back. It's the final step. I nod agreement. That's a good idea. We can split the rest of the treasure among the villagers who have helped us on this expedition. I am happy to donate some of my share to the village as well, but not my artifact. With the agreement made, we continue our journey back to the village with our newfound treasure. Looking forward to sharing our adventures with the rest of the Jungle Bunch. We are the Jungle Bunch. That makes no sense. You and your group make your way back to the village. The villagers greet you with cheers and applause as you arrive with the stolen artifact in your hand. Sounds so bad, stolen. You feel a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment as you hand over the artifact to the village elder, who thanks you for your bravery and hard work. You just railroaded me and jacked my artifact, the whole reason I came here. As night falls, the villagers throw a celebration in your honor. There's music and dancing and a feast with delicious cuisine. You and your group are treated as heroes and are showered with gifts and gratitude. As you sit around the fire, you can't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with your new companions. You realize that you formed a special bond during your journey together, and you look forward to more adventures with them in the future. The night wears on, and eventually you find yourself yawning. You bid your new friends good night and retire to your bamboo hut, feeling grateful for the experiences of the day. I wake up the next day and thank the villagers for their hospitality. I ask Kira if she would be willing to help guide me on my return journey to civilization. Kira nods and says, of course, I would be happy to help guide you back. It was a pleasure adventuring with you in the Jungle Bunch. The other villagers bid farewell and offer well wishes for the journey. They thank you for returning the stolen artifact and helping to keep their village safe. You and Kira then begin your journey back to civilization, trekking through the dense jungle and navigating winding rivers. As you travel, Kira shares stories of her experiences as a guide and the different landmarks and wildlife you encounter along the way. After several days of traveling, you finally reach a city where you can catch a ride back home. You thank Kira for her help and offer her a generous payment for her services. She accepts gratefully. Dude, I already did that. She accepts gratefully, happy to have made a new friend and adventure companion. With the artifact safely returned and the new friendship formed, you leave the jungle with a sense of accomplishment and fond memories of your adventure with the Jungle Bunch. And that's the end. It got a little bit rocky there, but it did conclude it. As you can see, the more it goes on, the more it begins to just ramble on and continue adding things or making decisions for me. But, I mean, it's definitely fun. It was hilarious using a Glock. But yeah, I got more videos planned, and I'm going to try having it run as a player too, as well as DM. But yeah, ChatGPT and I will see you in the next video. So, peace.
The goblinoid takes a shot with its shortbow, but the arrow narrowly misses you, whizzing past your side without causing any harm. As the goblinoids reach you, one of them comes within range of your readied action. You grab the goblinoid and forcefully smash its face into the fire pit. The goblinoid lets out a scream of pain as its flesh sizzles and burns. It struggles for a moment before falling lifeless, succumbing to the flames.
I would like to delicately slice off the face of one of the dead goblins, and then attach it to my face so that I appear like a goblin at first glance.
With a bit of effort, you manage to remove the face intact and then proceed to attach it to your own face using the straps of your helmet. You now look like a goblin at first glance, which may help you avoid detection.
I continue to progress deeper into the cave, passing all the goblins. I am looking for their leader.